Hello there. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the IB Diploma's English A individual oral commentary, and I'm going to be using the Great Gatsby as an example text of how to form a commentary for the IOC of an extract of about 40 lines. So to begin with, the basic structure for your IOC should be an introduction where you go through the things on the screen here, a main body that takes up the main majority of your commentary, and then a conclusion that just wraps things up and gives you a chance for a personal response. I'll try and do this within about 10 minutes, so I'll crack on. I don't want to waste too much time just talking generally. So to begin with, if I were doing this particular extract, we're talking about the very end of the novel, the last page. And here we see Nick returning after 2 years to Gatsby's home, and he's looking back on events and what he now thinks of the American dream, what he thinks of Gatsby, and the whole of America in general, really, at this stage. And it becomes almost Fitzgerald taking over the narrative. The effect of this is initially it seems quite downbeat and quite gloomy as Nick returns on his own. It's a very lonely kind of setting. But finally, at the end, there's a very famous line where it seems to offer some indication of hope through Nick, as I say, is the narrative voice throughout. He's an unreliable narrator. He seems now to finally reflect on Gatsby. And despite all of the failures of Gatsby, there's still some admiration for purely the wonder and the hope that Gatsby held. This links to the wider theme of the American dream and perhaps the futile nature of it. And this makes it an important passage because Fitzgerald here is really commenting directly on not just Gatsby, but he uses the pronoun us and our ability to dream, despite the fact that everything seems to have been corrupted in terms of this particular dream. The language used throughout is a lot of symbolism here. There's a lot of imagery and quite a desolate tone that's created. And to summarise the whole passage, as I mentioned, this is Nick returning after 2 years and summing up his feelings. The purpose of this really is for Fitzgerald to comment on the theme, to give us a final reminder of what Gatsby symbolised, and perhaps also offer some indications as to why he failed. In this commentary, I'll go through various stages of Nick returning on his own, looking at the lights that are around him now and what they now symbolise, and then reflecting on Gatsby and what he now represents and means for the future as well. So that's my very brief introduction. I've put it in that order purely so there's an acronym there, if you like, of lentils P. I probably should put the summary at the beginning, but apart from that, it gives you a rough idea. So let's move on to the different sections that I've broken it up into. You can see a rough headline for each at the top, just to kind of anchor it and give me some idea of where I'm going. So the first section I would say is we see Nick returning. It's quite downbeat. There's quite a bleak image here. The lights that previously had huge symbolism and the colours used throughout have lots of connotations are really minimal now. There's a glow, and the lights don't have the purely denotations now. The houses around here are called inessential. Interestingly, they were never really homes. Certainly for Gatsby, it was never a home. And now they seem inessential. They seem rather pointless. And as they melt away in Nick's memory, he goes back and there's a memory of Dutch sailors who equally had a dream of conquering a virgin land, and I think that reference is alluded to in the phrase green breast. Green clearly is a reminder of Gatsby's own personal dream. Their dream was different. It's to conquer and to take over somewhere. And moving on to the next section, so I'm just pausing and signposting there. Nick continues his reminiscing, if you like, of his memory of what the Dutch sailors must have seen. The trees symbolising nature have been uprooted and removed to make way for capitalist features. Gatsby's house is the ultimate capitalist feature of greed, if you like, even though it's done with perhaps a pure motive in mind. The trees have gone. He personifies them here with pandering and whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For the Dutch sailors, their dream was different, as I mentioned. For Gatsby, it's a poignant phrase here for the reader. The last and greatest of all human dreams really is love, and the idea that love can be reciprocated against all kind of hopes. And Gatsby really symbolises that on one level as just a love story. And Nick continues looking back at the the wonder and the hope that these sailors must have had. And this moves us into the final section for Fitzgerald. He wants us to still be aware that this capacity for wonder, as he calls it, is a huge thing, and possibly something to be hopeful about for the future. Okay, moving on to the next section in here is as Nick begins to reflect. And again, you see I've signposted where I'm going here. He comes back to the present here. He uses the present. Uses more personal pronouns here. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, he returns to Gatsby's wonder, and remembering more recently in the past where the green light did have huge connotations. And Gatsby's reaching out, trying to grasp it. Obviously, he never can. And that really sums up his whole dream. Everyone else can see this is never going to happen. This phrase about this dream, he must have been so close to this dream. In Gatsby's mind, it must have been so tangible and so real. And he genuinely believes he could turn back time. Almost as it's symbolised by when he catches the clock just before he re-meets Daisy after so many years. And Nick steps in here and is almost, for the first time, perhaps criticising Gatsby, because we know he's an unreliable narrator. Gatsby doesn't realise that the dream was already behind him. He had Daisy in a relationship previously, and that finished and she moved on. And it's now impossible for him to turn back time, largely because of the players in this situation. Tom and Daisy are obviously unwilling to change this, and even to admit Gatsby into their circles, which is a sign that the American dream, the idea that you can work hard and do well and achieve anything, really is a fallacy, and it's not true. This last line here in this section, the dark fields of the Republic rolled on, I think indicates that in this part of America, especially in the East Coast, this new money is not accepted, and hasn't been accepted. And I think this is Fitzgerald talking quite generally here about America, and especially this part of America, where the dark fields prevent people from rising up and improving their status. And then finally we move to this last section, one of the most famous in all of English literature, really. And the quote, the language here becomes much more poetic, almost like the romantic features that Fitzgerald loved in romantic poetry, and much more generalised. Gatsby believes in the green light. We return to that. The orgastic, that links to orgasm, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us is an oxymoron. Year by year we're going forwards, but somehow it recedes. It rolls back behind us, and he explains this in the next section. It eluded us then. Us is interesting because now it changes to a personal pronoun that includes us as a reader. And so this dream eludes us, but it doesn't matter, because we will carry on hoping, and like Gatsby, we'll stretch out our arms farther and farther, hoping that we can achieve this dream, even though it's behind us. And one fine morning, this sharp break, this ellipsis there, and then this sharp break into the last section, the last paragraph here. Very, very famous section. And so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Is a strange phrase. It's a very poetic phrase. It's a synthetic, which means there's no conjunctions here, which again adds to that poetic feel. If we look at this from a language point of view, there's a plosive sound here of the B sound repeated. This alliteration of B, beat, boats, borne back ceaselessly. It's a wonderful image. It's a great metaphor for hope, against hope, really, against when we know the dream is perhaps worthless and not worth fighting for. We still can't stop ourselves, which sums up Gatsby's love for Daisy and also the American dream, the idea that it's worth reaching those heights when they're so materialistic. We beat on. If we're in a boat and we're rowing, for example, we are looking back to where we've come from. And it's a great metaphor for Fitzgerald. We're looking back, and this shows us that whatever we dream about, we are surrounded by our past, and we can't get away from that. And that's really what this means. The current is the past, is always pushing us backwards, and yet we still continue to row and to beat on and to try and push forwards and achieve our dreams. Borne back clearly could be a pun. Borne back is forced back, but also born as in without an E. We're reborn every time as we try and recreate these dreams. Ceaselessly into the past. This is an infinity of hope. And it may seem futile, but at the same time, I'd like to see it as a positive sign that on this last section, Fitzgerald is giving us some idea that that hope does remain, and hope can be a positive thing and a good thing despite all of the futility of the dreams of some of us, especially Gatsby. And to that last section, I've tried to add more of a personal comment, and also to mention the language that's used, and to end up by talking about Fitzgerald rather than just the characters, to show what the importance of the extract is. Okay, I hope that was useful. Good luck with your own IOCs. Thank you.